What are some things in the current year that we love to hate? Velma, Morbius, James Corden, pancreatic cancer, all valid answers. Yes, it seems that since the beginning of time, we have found things that we love to hate. And that's where we're going in this video. Practically the prehistoric age. Buckle in, folks. We're taking a trip back to the mid-2000s. I don't think I even need to give Twilight a proper introduction. After 4 books in the main series and 5 film adaptations, the franchise has cemented itself as a pop culture icon. Forever tainted are the names Edward and Bella. If you look up abs in the dictionary, it's just Taylor Lautner. And if you thought glitter was gay before, well, I have a sparkling bridge to sell you. The first book came out in 2005, and it took that generation by storm. Whether it was love or hate, there is an obsession around this book and its sequels. We heard all about how the writing was terrible, how it was teenage smut, how it encourages vapidity in young girls, how it was the Antichrist, all that jazz. If you are on the Twilight hate train, I can't say I blame you. But let's be honest. How many of you on that train actually read the book? Uh-huh. And that's where I come in. Up until about 2 weeks ago, I was a passenger on that train. I remember making fun of Twilight as far back as 4th grade, when the most complicated book I'd read up to that point was The Phantom Tollbooth. And for the years since, I was adamant that this book that I never read was some kind of literary travesty. But as fate would have it, my curiosity to scrutinize my past perceptions overtook me, and I wondered whether I was right all along or if I judged this book unfairly. So, I ordered it and gave it a read. First of all, what the hell is up with this cover? Not only is the title font eye-piercingly huge, but the eye is actually spilling over onto the bottom half of the cover. It thinks it's Pac-Man, for Christ's sake. But anyway, the synopsis. Isabella Swan, a 17-year-old girl whom no one understands, moves to the dreary town of Forks, Washington, and she has a hard time adjusting until she encounters the mysterious and heartbreakingly handsome Edward Cullen. As she learns the blood-curdling truth about him, and he learns more about her, the two are locked in a romantic spiral that has tumultuous consequences not just for each other, but ones that transpire all around them. So, this book isn't terrible. On its face, it's a young adult fantasy romance novel with an ambitious sense of world building, not much more than that. There's a clear narrative voice, there's foundations for future lore, just basic stuff like that that kept the pages turning. My favorite parts were when Edward was explaining his family's backstories. That scene was actually pretty interesting and engaging, and the final confrontation between Bella and the tracker vampire James. Real intimidating, by the way, this horrifying, super-powered vampire who can track you from across a continent. James. Granted, much of the scene's merit comes from its setting and atmosphere, but we'll address that in a moment. My first big problem with the book was the pacing. For the first, 70% of the story, nothing happens. It's either teenage bullshit or long, drawn-out conversations and encounters between Edward and Bella. And of course, it's peppered with that gooey, lovey-dovey dialogue that at once sounds too immature and too precocious to be realistic. We don't even get actual antagonists until the final 100 pages or so, and they come right the hell out of nowhere to introduce conflict. I'm not kidding, they literally come out of nowhere to introduce conflict. And that's where the brief instance of James comes in. Fuck, man, where's James's backstory? I want the James book. The only vampire in this vampire novel who vampires, and he's destroyed off-page. Disgraceful. Justice for James! Edward's combination of torment and suavity annoyed me, but as the novel progressed, it became slightly less annoying, which I consider an improvement. Charlie, Bella's father, is my favorite character. The poor man's just trying his best. It legitimately broke my heart when Bella was pretending to leave Forks and pretending to be mad at him. I was just like, ugh, come here, Charlie, let's man-hug it out. But the worst character, and by far the worst part of the book, is, well, to no one's surprise, Bella. How do I describe Bella's character? She's a black hole. Everything is drawn to her presence, sucked into the event horizon. Whole galaxies revolve around her. And she gives nothing in return. Bella is just the most basal archetype of a teenage girl in the history of literature, and everything happens to her. By page 40, she already has like 5 guys after her. According to Edward, she is just a magnet for trouble for no reason. She has this aura about her that is just absolutely intoxicating to vampires, and she is somehow immune to Edward's mind-reading abilities because derpity-doo, I guess, and that fascinates him. There is nothing to her character, actions, behaviors to suggest that she's anything special or worth pursuing. She is a plain, unimpressive human who happens to be the center of attention, because that's the way things are. And that's the whole point of this book. Bella is not a character. She is a cushiony, all-access seat for the target demographic to strap into. Through Bella, the teenage girl reading this book can find herself in the middle of a deluge of male attention and cinematic drama without any effort, introspection, or guilt, without any of that pesky character development or multi-layeredness getting in the way. You don't get invested in Bella. You, the reader, are made into the investment. And let's not pretend there haven't been stories that have made you, the reader, into the main character. But it becomes problematic when the vessel you inhabit has almost no agency, is special without trying, and is spoon-fed every pleasurable desire imaginable. And that includes the bad shit. It's that meme where someone says they don't like drama but welcome it in anyway. Because secretly we all want to be attacked by a vampire, only for a tall, dark, and handsome vampire to swoop in and save the day. Don't pretend like you haven't thought about it before. I know you have. Hell, I have. Which leads me to a broader point. When these books were coming out, some critics were eager to compare the fantasy and world-building elements to Harry Potter, going so far as to suggest that Twilight offers essentially the same experience as Harry Potter. No, not true. The way Harry Potter is written, the reader wants to be in the wizarding world. They want to learn spells. They want to hang out with the main trio and encounter magical creatures and triumph over terrible enemies. The way Twilight is written, the reader wants to be Bella Swan. And this is precisely Stephenie Meyer's design. Forget about your boring, arduous, real life for a while, and instead be Bella Swan, the luckiest girl on Earth. It's safe to say that this isn't a good book. I am glad that I finally read it and more or less confirmed my suspicions about its problems and its quality. Like I said, it's not terrible, but I did not like the experience, and it's definitely not a book for me. Which leads me to part 2 of this video.
You already know what time it is. She's getting interviewed. What are we talking about?
Twilight.
Woo!
Hey.
Hey, Nick.
What?
Hey, you just cut me off and got ready to call you an asshole. I'm sorry.
Oh, thanks, Mom.